Hi everybody, thanks for joining us here on the Last Cast podcast. We're on to episode 4 already. A bit longer than we normally have in between podcasts, but we've got a real treat today. We've got 4 of us, including myself. We've got Paul, as usual. We're joined by Terry Phillips from the World 2020 team, or 2021 team as it is now for Finland. And we've also got Ben Thompson on the line from Angling Trust. Despite the fact we give Ben 3 days notice, he still managed not to put his makeup on, so he's not joining us on camera. It's just on audio. What we're going to do today, guys, we're going to talk a bit about the structure of Angling Trust and the TEFF, how that all sort of mixes in together. Talk about finances, talk about EPP, talk about what maybe fly fishing does wrong, what it can do right, looking at course fishing as an example. So Terry, would you mind just giving us, before we get started, just a bit of background about yourself, about how long you've been involved with the team, etc., for the guys that aren't aware?
Yeah, sure. So I've been fly fishing for as long as I remember. Really, I can't remember a time when I wasn't fly fishing. So grew up in a fishing family, doing sea fishing, course fishing, and fly fishing, and decided to stick with the fly fishing stuff and started competing around about 12 years ago now. So I've qualified for pretty much every senior England team going, and more recently just qualified and been selected for the World Championship team for Finland 2020-2021.
Yeah, we've got to put that extra bit on the end.
I know, yeah. Makes it a bit longer, doesn't it?
Yeah. Cool. So we'll get straight into it, guys. The first question, what we're going to do is sort of put questions forward to Ben as a main, and then we want input from everyone. So we'll go around starting with Ben, and then we'll, as I say, we'll spread out. If anybody wants to have got their side of things, just put in.
Why has he got to be first?
Sorry?
Why has he got to be first?
Special.
Yeah, special.
Special fucking needs.
Well, you're on every week, for Christ's sake.
Okay.
You know the section at the end of each show where it's like, is there anything you want to get off your chest? That was like especially for you, Paul. That's your time.
How long did that last though? That must have been a good half an hour.
Yeah, I know. We usually only talk for 5 minutes, and then it's actually, to be fair to Paul, we've had 3 weeks and he's not had a single thing to gripe about, which I'm usually me.
Make up for it today.
I've been saving them up.
Yeah.
I'm usually whinging about people's fly time videos. So the first question, Ben, is sort of where the priorities lie with Angling Trust. Do we say Angling Trust priorities are with the elite level, with the senior international teams, world, European, home national level? Obviously, this is not just fly fishing we're talking about here. This is across the board. Does it sort of prioritize juniors getting into the sport, or just putting more people into angling as a whole?
All of the above. We've got different departments that cover those different topics, if you like. We've got a participation team headed up by Clive Copeland. He's got a team of regional officers. Their focus is on increasing angling participation, which includes juniors. Clive spoke to Clive this morning. Actually, he gave us some stats from last year. I think they introduced 38,000 people last year alone to fishing. And half of those were juniors, over half. And that's obviously up and down the country through whether it's coached events, mass participation events. Obviously, not all of those are bona fide anglers and taking up the sport full time, but they've all been exposed to it. So a lot of work goes on there.
Is that through like school programs, Ben, or things like that pathway, or just a mix?
A little bit of school programs. It's a lot of mass participation events, so big family get-togethers, mum, dad, kids going along, having a go. Also work with clubs as well. So they do a lot of the guys support clubs to run their events, because obviously the big thing is it's all well and good having an event, but the most important thing on the back of that is an exit route. So that's why it's really important that they work with clubs, so they have a go, they realise that they like it, but what's the next step, which is obviously to get involved in a club or to get involved in a fishery, so they can continue their journey, if you like. So yeah, they do a lot of work, a lot of good work. I head up the competitions team, competitions department, which focuses on domestic and international.
In all disciplines, not just fly fishing.
Game, course, and sea.
Okay.
We have, I think at last count, 34 England teams across the 3 disciplines that compete at in SIPS competitions. So whether that's FIPS Moosh, FIPS ED, or FIPS M, Game, course, sea, and then obviously the home internationals as well.
Cool. I've just thought of a question actually. That I'm going to put this to you now. Is a bit of a left field one.
Thanks.
We'll touch. It's nothing to don't worry about. We'll touch on the EPP later. But as you've just said, you look after sort of the course and sea. When they do their qualifiers, Ben, do they do their qualifiers to the same rule format as FIPS?
We don't have qualifiers. The 3 disciplines. Okay. Are we talking about for England selection here?
Yeah.
3 disciplines have very different approaches. They're historical, back from when the NFA were an independent body and the NFSA were independent, and obviously TEFF was Confed, I think, back then. CEF. So yeah, they've all got different ways of doing it. The course guys basically pick their teams. There's obviously a massive match circuit, so these guys are active 2-3 times a week in normal circumstances. But they just pick the teams. They look at the venues, what sort of skill sets are required, who's the best options they've got for that particular venue or that particular championships, and then the team's just basically picked by the manager.
I bet that is a bit of a faff. I bet that puts up some arguments on Facebook.
Not really. No, I mean the win. They regularly win.
Yeah, I suppose.
And you know, like I said, they're picked on merit. There's not, the team is very consistent, but they've got, you've got a few guys who are in the team year in, year out, but they also do a very good job of blooding the youngsters as well. You know, the up and coming guys. So if there's they maybe go to a European Championships, if you like, to get exposure to that sort of competition.
Well, one of the questions I was going to ask actually, Ben, is what obviously you've got an idea of what goes on in both camps. Let's just take course fishing and fly fishing as the 2. Obviously, the course anglers, as you've said, are massively successful. What do they do differently to fly sort of scene? And obviously, like you've just touched on there, probably getting the youth involved. But so do you, and it doesn't make any difference for you.
What do they do different?
Taffy.
A lot of the guys fish FIPS matches. So there's not that many FIPS matches in the UK, but the guys will travel abroad. There's, like I said, there's a very close circuit as well. So there's, you know, the Noayan team, that's very much apparent with what they do. They're all willing to work with each other and support each other. And they're all just top anglers, really, really good anglers. You know, they're some of the best in the world. You could probably, England's world team, you could probably put the whole lot of them in the top 15 in the world, top 20 in the world.
Yeah. So can I ask Ben on that one? Are the course guys, are they amateurs or professionals or semi-professional?
There's no real professionals. I mean, you know, a lot of them are linked to companies, so some of them are employed by companies, but not as professional fishermen, if you like. Would be consultants or you know, guides or coaches or whatever. But I don't think there's, you know, professional fishermen, if you like. But I don't know for sure, Terry, to be honest. But they do spend a lot of time on the water. You know, I mean, there's a massive media profile as well. So if you let us finish, if you go on YouTube, you'll see lots of videos of Des Ship or Lee Kerry or Will Reyes and whatever it is. So they're making these videos for the companies. So they do get to spend a lot of time on the water, and obviously there's a massive match scene as well. So they spend a lot of time competing.
Go on, Paul.
What?
Said you had a question.
In your opinion, Ben,
yeah,
if in the course side of it, if we've got the bulk of the team in the top 15, which is brilliant.
Yeah, they were just off the top of my head figures. I'm sure there's.
Yeah. No, I accept that. But so why haven't we got this roughly the same in game fishing?
Maybe that's a question for you guys to answer, just yourselves.
Well, one of the questions I was going to ask off the back of what you said, Paul, me and Terry were part of a Q&A that we did last night with the rest of the guys and the team for Finland. And the question that I got asked was pretty much what you've just said, is why are we not performing better at a higher level? Part of my answer involved the fact that we are not able to travel to the continent to practice on areas that the competitions are mainly on. And the last time there was a World Championships in the UK was in Scotland, and we won gold. So we don't get the chance to sort of perform on our own patch. For us to travel across to Slovakia or Czech Republic or Italy, it's all got to be funded by the team. I don't know if that's the same with the course anglers. That's one of the questions I was going to ask. Is that subsidised by the manufacturers that they're sponsored by, or is it all at their own pocket?
No, I mean, this is another. To be honest, I get asked this question a million times. Worth clarifying as well that we angling trusts do not get a penny from government for elite angling, for elite sport. So your other sports, if you like, at international level, a lot of the Olympic and Paralympic are funded by UK Sport. But Sport England don't fund elite performance. Obviously, everyone's aware that we're funded by Sport England, but they're not necessarily aware that that money cannot be used for performance angling. It has to be used at grassroots level. So that's just one point. Let's just digress a little bit. The course teams, there's some of the teams are sponsored. Not very many. There's only a couple of teams that are sponsored. The rest of the teams are self-funded. So they're either paying themselves. They do a lot of fundraising throughout the year. There's people who make donations, so they might get a couple of £100 from a local firm. But if you can replicate that 3, 4, 5 times, you've got a few quid in the pot there as well. But the vast majority of the 34 England teams that we've got are self-funded.
If you don't support elite performance, could we not have some money on fly fishing then?
Sorry, I don't understand the question.
It was a joke. You don't sponsor elite performances, or you're not getting them.
So that's why we got Paul on for witty remarks like that.
Lost a whole lot of us there.
No, absolutely fantastic. Yes, that's quite interesting what you said about the course guys spending a lot of time abroad fishing in European, let's just say, for waters, because we were talking about that last night, Terry.
Yeah, we were,
yeah. That's one of the reasons that we put down. I mean, we did
Is that not the same for the other nations, Scott?
Sorry, Ben?
Is that not the same for the other nations? And I know if you're in Europe, it's a little bit easier to travel.
Yeah, well, that was part of my argument last night. I mean, take the championships in the Czech Republic, for example. It's fairly central in Europe, and it's easy accessible for the guys. Poland, Italy, Slovakia, Slovenia, whereas we would say, let's go down and fish the day or when the Rivers final was on the Ebu. That's from where I am. That's like a 5-6 hour drive. Instead of doing that, if I was at the elite level, I would just spend that weekend traveling to the Czech Republic. If I was in France, say it'll be like a 10-hour drive, but for me that would be more worth fishing on the venue that's going to be in the championships. That I'll get more out of that.
Jump on a plane, it's quicker.
It's more expensive as well. But what I was going to say was we had the chance to go to Finland last year. Me, Terry, and Harry Fox went, and we fished the venues and the match water that'll be in the competition for Finland next year. And Terry will back me up on this. The information that we got from some of the venues was really good. The information that we got on them venues was stuff that we wouldn't be able to get within the short period of time that we're usually out there for in a week prior up to the championships.
Yeah, I think it's difficult to Scott, isn't it? Because to go the year before the championships are usually held at the same time every year.
Yeah.
So to be in a team competing in a World or a Euros, and then find time to go and practice on the back of that for the year after, obviously time away from the family, it's time away from work. It's a hell of an expense.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's
resources to do it, and you've got the dedication to do it. Then it obviously would be massively beneficial. But I suppose it's like I said, it depends on your personal circumstances as to whether that's something you could do or not.
Yeah, I mean, that's the first time I've ever been able to do it, and I've been involved at the European and Worlds for getting on a decade now. And personally, that was a really big help. It allows us to get so far ahead on our fly tie-in. Our prep, we know sort of the depth maps of the lakes and stuff like that. So the proof of the pudding's in the eating now. If we go next year and we finish stone last, then it'd be a bit of a waste of time. That'll just completely contradict my argument.
Can I just ask a question, Ben? Just coming back a minute to the comparison of the course guys versus the fly guys. I mean, how do they manage that situation where they're competing in a world championship and actually they're trying to prep for the following year's world championship? Do they like change their world selection to accommodate that?
I don't necessarily think it's to accommodate that. Like I say, I think Mark tends to pick, a lot of the venues they've used repeatedly, and Mark Downs, the manager, he's been there, done it, got the T-shirt. A lot of the managers have Dick Clegg beforehand, Steve Sanders. So they've spent a lot of time on those venues in the past anyway, so they kind of know what to expect. I mean, obviously, it'd be the same with you guys. If you've got Joe Bloggs who's performing particularly well on, in Norway or in Czech or whatever, then there's a fair chance that they're going to be going back. And that's a similar thing in course fishing as well. But like I say, they tend to pick the best team for the venue more so than planning ahead. Plus,
do you not think the course lads get together a bit more though, Ben?
The course guys.
Yeah.
Not to my
knowledge. What I mean is on a weekly basis, or they'll come across each other in matches.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like I say, there's a massive
that's one of the problems that I've got with the setup now. If we went to choosing a team, then how do you breed the new lads? Because they won't get a look in if you're picking the team. Not at the minute, because we don't have enough. Terry, how often do I see you on the match circuit?
Once, twice a year, maybe.
If you're lucky.
Yeah, if that.
Yeah. And that's just bad judgment on my part. Yeah, there's not enough of work getting together to see the new blood coming through, which I think is a bit of a shame. But it's like Scott says, we don't have enough Phillips mush comps. And if you don't have them, then you're not going to see any new lads coming through. And that new lad will only come through if the manager sees them.
Yeah, I mean, there's a difference as well with the course side, Paul, is that there's an under-15s world team, there's an under-20s world team, and then there's an under-25s. Yeah. So if you look at the guys over the last 5-10 years, there's a steady progression. I mean, under-15s is a new team. But you go back, some of the guys that's in that team now, Matt Godfrey's, they've gone right through from the junior level. There's quite a few of the guys there. Cameron Hughes, they've all come through the system. And it tends to be, if somebody is coming into the team, they tend to come from that younger age group, where they've progressed beyond the 25s, rather than, dare I say, an outsider, if you like, an older, more experienced person. And like I say, that a lot of that's due to the fact they've experienced Phillips Mush competition for potentially 8 or 10 years. Phillips CD, sorry, not Phillips Mush. So that they've been exposed to that style of competition and those rules. There's no Phillips competitions in England either in course fishing. Well, there's one. Mark Downs runs one with the Census Challenge, but it's very much 5-a-side and 11-a-side sort of analogy.
Ben, you just touched on the under-15, under-20 course teams, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Who are they? Who's the sort of organising body behind them? Have they got a TEFF style setup like we have, or?
No, we've got a group of managers basically that get together. So they're very much run independently with themselves. I mean,
Okay.
there's obviously an intrinsic link between the 15s, 20s, 25s, and then the senior team.
Yeah.
You know, those managers they work closely together. The 3 youth teams, their world championships are all on at the same time.
Okay.
So they go away together, which again is great for them because the 15s have a chance to learn from the 20s. The 20s pass their knowledge to the 25. You know, so it goes. So yeah, they say those managers work closely together. And Mark Downs, as well as running the senior team, also runs a 25s team. So he gets to see these guys coming through. So he, you know, by the time they leave the 25s, he knows all about them. He knows exactly what they're capable of, and you know what the potential is.
So from our point of view as fly anglers, it sounds like an awesome setup.
Yeah, from what you're saying, Ben, so they fish to the same rule set, the same Phillips rule set from a young age all the way through the senior career.
Yes.
They don't have home nation matches fished to a different rule set. Is
Nope.
that right?
Nope.
Okay. Therein lies one of the differences.
Massively,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, the domestic scene, the domestic match scene, isn't like that. So you probably 99% of your anglers, your course anglers, don't fish Phillips style matches. The guys who fish in, fish in Mania or go to commercials, that sort of thing. They all fish different set of rules entirely. But yes, the guys at the elite level, if you like, have pretty much fished Phillips ED matches for a long time.
So just moving on from that, I mean, we touched on one of the things I think that we have an issue with as a nation, not being able to fish different venues as accessible. One of the questions I was going to put, Ben, and this is something that everyone can get involved with, really. It's purely a personal opinion. It's nothing to do with anyone's stance, but how do you guys think that we, as fly fishing team, how do you guys think that we are lacking? Just one thing from each of you, if that would be all right. What we missing as a nation, fly fishing nation? How can we get from finishing around that mid-table mark to finishing in the top 5 year in, year out? Start with Paul, because he looks like he's falling asleep.
No, I think a lot of people need to take a rain check and realise that we're not as good as we think we are, and you need to work on that. Too many people think we're too good, and yet we keep on consistently getting 8th, 9th, 10th place. And then you hear people saying, but we're the best lake anglers. Some are very good lake anglers, but in reality, the last time we had the World Championships in England, did we win it? Chew Valley Lake.
Wales.
Yeah, we didn't win it.
Yeah.
So the rest of Europe is catching up on what used to be our advantage, but we're not improving.
Yeah.
And there's too many people think we're too good for it. There's some serious top quality anglers, or so they would have you believe. And it doesn't matter how good an angler, you've got to be prepared to learn off each other. You've got to be prepared to tell each other everything. And I don't think we've worked as a team now for a lot of years.
Interesting.
Everybody is out for themselves, the majority.
One thing for me, Scott, one thing I've noticed it's difficult because obviously I haven't been involved in this setup for too long, but through EPP, I watched Howard a lot. And the one thing I noticed with Howard was that it doesn't matter if it was the first minute of the session or the last minute of the session, he give it full welly, give it everything. And picking a fish up in the last couple of minutes, or picking a fish up at the death. And this has all been a learning curve for me, the EPP, about how it works and how the nuances and how important one fish can be. to session points and to the overall scores.
Yeah.
So there's one thing there is, and I guess that comes from Howard's experience of fishing those style of matches and knowing how important it is. And again, knowing that a session, you might be blanking for 2 hours, 50 minutes of the session, but a fish in the last 10 minutes or two fish in the last 10 minutes, and all of a sudden you've avoided the blank, it's boosted your score. So I guess the next point to that is, I firmly believe this as well, is the more people that fish Phipps mush matches more often, more regular, that mentality and that attitude and that belief, if you like, that you can still do it, I think that would certainly help when they go away to compete. Because I guess a lot of it, it's going to be fairly new. You're only really competing in how many sessions is there in the Worlds? 5?
5, yeah.
So you're only really fishing 5 Phipps mush matches in a year.
Mm-hmm. And
yeah, I totally agree with you there, Ben. But the sad thing is, there's quite a few of them have been saying, "Oh, well, could you not knock the EPP down to 4 weekends, to 3 weekends, to 1 weekend?" Get a grip. You're saying, or they are saying it, we're not fishing enough Phipps mush matches, and yet they want them cut down.
I don't think not necessarily just about EPP either, Paul. I would like to see, there's the match scene in fly fishing is nowhere near what it is in coarse fishing, but from what I can see, it's all fishing different rules. So I don't think it's necessarily down to EPP. That there's scope out there for other competitions to run those style of matches as well.
I've been trying to run one, but this damn virus got in the way.
Ben, and I think the other two will agree with us here. We've got a situation where the bulk of the comps that we do are done at IFFA level. And what happens is, as the years go on, you get your favourite flies for favourite places, for favourite times. And the lads in the World European don't get a chance to get that box put together properly, because they've always got to revert back to IFFA rules and flies. And you cannot expect somebody to go and fish under a different set of rules for 2 weeks.
Paul, that was one of the main reasons behind EPP. Like I said, 5-a-side, 11-a-side. You play 5-a-side football for 11 months of the year, and then you're expected to go and play 11-a-side for on a one-off. The guys you've got, the IFFA, don't get us wrong, it's still massively important, equally important. It has its own place, and you'll have your own anglers, a set of anglers who want to fish those matches and want to be successful and achieve what they want to do. But you've also got another set of anglers who are interested in World European, and at the moment there's nothing for those guys to hone their skills or to get the experience. Up until EPP, like I say, you were running around the country fishing in matches that you really probably didn't want to fish in, but you had to in order to get the points, in order to be eligible for World and European, which was just bizarre. It was almost a waste of money and a waste of resources. So yeah, you see that I think more Phipps mush style matches, whoever organises them, whether it's EPP, whether it's Angling Trust, whether it's TEFF, or whether it's fisheries or individuals, certainly would certainly help.
Yeah. Terry, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, Paul pretty much touched on it there. We're kind of, as a nation, I think we expect to do better by fishing less. That doesn't work. That will never work. You look at, compared to what we do in terms of the volume of Phipps-based matches we fish in a calendar year versus Spain, France, Czech Republic, probably even the USA nowadays, and it just doesn't compare at all. They're fishing 20 plus matches a year each individual, and that's the absolute key point for me. If we want to get better, you've got to fish more, and you've got to fish more to the relevant rule set. Otherwise, we're going to be having the same conversation in 10 years' time.
Yeah.
How many? Can I tell you guys? As a team, or 2 points actually. As a team, how often do you guys get together and have your own little Phipps matches, your own sessions?
Probably don't.
Well, yeah.
You go fishing, but you don't set it out as Phipps mush rules because you put a squirmy on.
Well, let me answer that one, because with the team that we had for Finland, it was one of the first times in the last decade that I've been involved that we've actually had a squad weekend. And that, like we touched on before, Terry, but when we went down to the D in January, and that was to Phipps rules. Howard, who was a manager, he pegged out the river, give us 5 pegs. We fished to Phipps rules, not using squirmies, as you rightly pointed out, Paul, but the next sort of innovation in worm technology, should we say. But yeah, that was one of the first ones, and we were planning to have more in the summer. Like I say, we did a Q&A last night, which was on YouTube now. Obviously, the virus has got in the way.
Yeah, but that's for you, 5 or 6 people.
Yeah, I thought that was the point, though, is that how many times as a team do you get away?
Yeah, again, it was just because, like you said, there's not that many matches there, so do you create your own? I mean, the other thing as well, you only got together once. How often do you guys go fishing in a year?
Can I give you a simplistic answer?
No, let them answer that one first, Paul.
The last 3 or 4 years, I have not been fishing as much as I used to.
I mean, the point I'm making is, you might go pleasure fishing 8, 10, 12, 15 times a year. Well, you could potentially, instead of going fishing, you could potentially get together as groups and, like I say, create your own series of matches.
This was one of the things we talked about last night as well. And my answer to that was how serious I take my pleasure fishing depends on how much I'm actually doing in that period. So if I'm not fishing a great amount, like at the moment we haven't been able to get out, the first 2 or 3 times that I get out, I'll have my sort of competition style head on, because I want to go out and catch as many fish as I possibly can, and that's how I do it. If I go at full speed for 3 hours, that's how I'll achieve the largest number of fish. That's just how I would do it. I mean, I don't know if Terry would have a different answer to that, but
yeah, I think probably from the conversation we had last night, everyone seemed to practice a little bit differently. So I think Howard and Davey mentioned that they will do what Ben's just said. So they will say, right, that's your peg. We'll go out and have a pleasure day, but it's not. It's a Phipps practice day. They'll say, right, that's your starting peg, that's your end peg, and you fish it as a match. And yeah, everyone does it differently. I mean, just to give you some numbers, Ben, I'd probably fish 30 to 40 days a year. Will be full days. Will be kind of the number I'll fish, of which will be a mixture of competitions and kind of practice sessions. There's probably 3 or 4 pleasure days in that. It's all working on something. It's all preparing a new technique or learning a new technique or practicing for a competition. But yeah, it's probably a slightly different mindset in the. Yeah, why don't individual anglers or teams get together a bit more and
just trying to say the same thing, Terry? There's guys out there who want to get to that level or want to fish that, and there's plenty of noises out there. There's no opportunities for us. I don't think there's anything stopping them creating their own opportunities. And okay, it's not the same level, but it's a start. They say if they're doing what Howard and Davey do, you can easily read the rules, understand the rules yourself, and go out and set your own comps up.
Yeah, in terms of the learning curve, though, Ben, what I'd say is you fishing 25 matches a year against some of the top French lads, so you're seeing them fish all the time, as opposed to going and doing it on your own. The learning curve is different.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Again, that was evident in EPP as well. I think when guys were sitting on the back of each other, watching and learning, picking bits and pieces up, that's massively important. I just think we are where we are, and you've got to make the best of what we've got, and we're not at the position where we're going to be fishing 20 Phipps matches a year. So,
and that comes down to manpower, Ben. But if you turn around to people and said, right, are you interested in the Phipps mush, the world, the European? You only have to have one of the criteria. I think you would then get an influx a lot want to be interested in it. There's no stopping you. I know I harp on about Division 2 and I'm still convinced by it, but you've suddenly got an influx of people who are really up for it, and you could then start holding the matches where instead of having 5 people, you could have 25 or 30. And then that's when the ideas and the work rate goes up. because you suddenly sit there and think, shit, these are up my arse now. I need to do something about it. And you're never ever going to get the situation unless you open the door to let them people in. Yes, haven't got the criteria Terry has or Scott, but so what? Until they learn what these two lads know, chances are they won't get in the team. But leave the door open and let them shut the door on themselves.
Yeah, I think the other side of the coin as well is it would be a great learning curve for them. But would Scott and Terry benefit or improve?
Well, if there's 10 matches throughout the year, they've got the option to enter. It's got to be good for them. It's got to be good for Scott and Terry, where they've got the option to enter 10 Phillips mush comps a year if they want.
No, absolutely. Again, going back to that point, it's about fishing matches. I think as well that you one of the things I've learned and understood from the course guys is you get better from getting beat, or you get better from being tested. So you're talking about the guys who are aspiring to get to that level. Yes, they would learn a hell of a lot by fishing with and getting their asses spanked by some of the top guys. But then, like I say, what would those top guys necessarily be getting out of it by vastly more experienced and potentially greater skill sets? They're not going to be as tested or improve at the rate they would want to.
So I was going to bring EPP up later, but I think probably we'd do it now because it's what we're talking about anyway. For the guys that are listening that are not aware what EPP is, it's the Elite Performance Program, correct?
Yes.
Is that right? Yeah, Elite Performance Program, which was brought in 2 years ago to help select the England, World and European team for future events. It was a series of weekends that were fished to Phillips mush rules, different venues across England, Wales and Scotland. Obviously, this year, we're not really sure what's going to happen with this year. One of the questions that we've got to put to Ben was sort of what's happening with the organisation of this year's league. Has it been knocked on the head because next year's team's already selected, or will it be moved back? As Paul mentioned about the number of weekends, it was over 3. There's rumours been going around it might be knocked down to 1. Are you in any position, Ben, to sort of talk about?
It's a bugger's muddle, to use Stewie Wardle's phrase.
It's a
it's a bugger's muddle.
Clear as mud.
Yeah, basically. So it was planned. It was all scheduled. And the change in the way TEFF allocate funds or distribute the funds had a knock-on effect for EPP. So you guys have taken part, and you know how much it costs. I think was it 3 or 4 weekends last year?
3 weekends of 3 days, I think.
Yeah. So you've got guys travelling around the country. Costs quite a lot of money. But that's what they decide to invest in, so that's fine. That's their commitment. But
when you say they, Ben, are you meaning TEFF?
No, the anglers. So you guys spend money to travel, to accommodation, for your fishing fees, petrol, all that, food, all that sort of stuff. So over the course of those weekends, obviously that racks up.
Yeah.
Again, that's a decision that you make. That's your investment in your sport. But like I said, the change came when TEFF changed the way they allocate their funds. So you fish EPP, it might cost you, I don't know, you guys have a better idea because you experienced it. So say for argument's sake, 1,500 quid. You then get selected for a World or European team. In the past, anglers were charged, or anglers made a contribution, I think, in the region of £700.
Yeah, around about, depending on where you were, 600, 750 plus your own spending money. Yeah,
and then TEFF basically funded the rest. So that was a significant contribution, again, depending on where you go. Obviously, we've had Colorado recently, Tasmania, you've had your Bosnias and stuff, so it fluctuates, but it's obviously quite expensive. Now, that's been flipped on its head because of the lack of funds that TEFF now have. TEFF would be giving the angler a bursary of 700 quid, and then the anglers would make up the rest. So if it, that could be, well, it is going to be thousands of pounds. So if it was going to be £3,000 to take part in the Worlds, in the past, you guys would have paid TEFF 700, TEFF would have paid 2,300 per angler, just fictitious figures. Like I say, that's now been flipped on its head. So the angler would be paying the 2,300 quid plus the 1,500 odd quid for EPP. So the cost to the angler to take part in EPP and to represent England has gone through the roof.
So I hear what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
So how is that going to? So are you putting that forward as a reason why you don't think EPP is going to be as successful as it could be? Then
no, EPP is here to stay. We've just got to find a way to do it. I think it's obviously a bit of a culture shock. It's a change for the anglers to go from paying, like I said, the 700 odd quid to then having to find thousands to do it.
Okay.
So you've gone from one extreme to another. But I think one of the things anglers are going to have to get their heads around is if that's what they're committed to, then the guys who've got the money, then that's fine. But there's a lot that can be done on fundraising, whether it's individuals or whether you do it collectively. There's work that TEFF and the Angling Trust can do on generating sponsorship and things like that. I know Terry's done a lot of work on raising funds this year, but that's what, again, looking at our other 30-odd England teams, that's what they all do. So, and that's just the norm for them.
If you want it, and you're committed, you will find some way of getting that money together.
Yeah, absolutely. But like I say, how you do that, whether it's fundraising or rattling buckets, whatever it might be, they'll find a way to do it, hopefully. And like I said, some of the feedback we had this year, once we had it planned, was we can't afford to do both. We can't afford to spend that much money on EPP and then in the World and Europeans. So if people couldn't afford to do it, then we haven't got an EPP. So then what we looked at doing was, well, how can we compromise and try and find a way to make both work? So the natural thing to do is look at cutting the number of events, which reduces the cost, which I would really be looking to do, because the more results you've got, the fairer your end result.
I think I'm right in saying if it was cut to one weekend, for example, that would have.
Don't have World and European team. Do an alternative, yes.
I'll just put a world team in every year. But
Yeah.
what I was going to say was,
right, Scott. Then you go back, the discussion we had earlier on about not having enough Phipps Moose matches as it is. You would then be halving the number of anglers exposed to Phipps Moose match rules.
I think the point I'm trying to make is, though, Ben, there's going to have to be some way of figuring it out, because hearing what I'm hearing from the rest of the lads that were in the EPP last year was, if things don't change financially wise, there's not going to be one, because there's not going to be enough anglers. It's going to be a situation where it's going to be the 5 richest guys with the criteria are going to be the ones that get on the plane. It's not going to be the 5 best anglers, which is.
I would challenge the anglers and say, why don't you go out and raise funds?
Well, we have done this, yeah. And Terry will tell you how difficult it is. From our point of view, we doing it on a 1 year basis, asking for people for equipment and things like that and generation. It's not a sustainable way of getting money, and Terry will tell you that. He's probably had a lot of rejections more than anybody else asking for money.
One thing I put to you, Scott, you do guide, you take people out guiding, don't you?
When I can, yeah. When everybody wants to go out.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that if the England team offered their services for a couple of days to take guys out or girls out, that would generate a few hundred quid.
Yeah, well, we've done that, haven't we, Terry? That was part of the auction last year.
Yeah, that's what Davey and Howard are doing as well on chatting. So, like, all these little bits and pieces we've done, Ben, as a cumulative, I mean, we're probably going to get around about $5,000 together, but that still leaves us £10,000 short in terms of just sending the team to the World Championships, and that's just us, just as a world team. Yeah. So, and that, as Scott mentioned before, Is that sustainable year on year? Probably not. Probably not. I mean, it's took probably about 2 months of my time over the last 6 months to pull that together. So even if you take that across the team and what the guys have been doing, it's quite a heavy time that you're putting into kind of fundraising to get kind of probably about 30% of the funds you need to.
Yeah.
So there's still like a massive gap there, which I don't think teams would be able to fill that gap through fundraising. Not on the fly fishing side anyway.
No.
I don't know on the course side. I don't know how much are they getting? Are they getting kind of 60-70% of the funds through fundraising?
It's difficult to say, Terry, across the board because there's that many teams. There's certainly a significant personal contribution from them. They don't raise huge amounts through fundraising or various bits and pieces. It's the norm that they historically they know that they have to make a contribution. They raise as much as they can to subsidise that cost through fundraising, but that's their passion and that's what they want to do. So they find the money. You mentioned there, Scott, it'll be the 5 richest guys in the team. That's not evident in those other disciplines.
But the difference with that is you've got a massive pool of anglers in the course. I don't think you can compare course and fly from what we've just heard. Their whole setup is way in front of where we are.
That doesn't have an impact on the individual finding the money to go and compete themselves. Doesn't matter how many people are in the sport.
But no, the difference that course angling's got is they haven't got an EPP league. Theirs is just selected by the manager. We've got an EPP league to pick the teams from. If there's not enough anglers to fish the EPP league, where does that leave us? How do you pick the team from then?
Well, yeah, again, that's why we need to find a solution that works.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest thing is, like I said, it's a culture change. It's gone from a situation where you've been massively subsidised to take part, to go around the world for a couple of weeks to take part in fishing competitions, to all of a sudden having to pay for it. And that obviously, it takes a bit of getting used to. But it's the way it is. There's not the money coming in to TEFF. TEFF don't have the resources. John Ball did an unbelievable job for so many years raising funds to subsidise the costs for you guys. That's how TEFF were able to do that. And obviously, since John no longer does that, that's left a massive hole in the finances, if you like. So they're at the point now where there's X amount coming in, and then there's X amount going out, and whatever there is being spent. You hear bits and pieces about where does the money go, and people must think TEFF are sitting on a fortune. It's not. Like I say, X comes in and X goes out.
That's one of the questions as well. Actually, I was going to bring it up at the end, but you've kind of just touched on it. Yeah, we did ask for questions from people that listened to the show previous if they wanted to ask anything, and one of the questions was, are there any incoming or outgoing expenses available to be published?
We've talked about it, and there's no problem with doing it. Absolutely not. Again, that's another thing. People think, they're hiding it. There's a reason why they're not publishing it. It's difficult to do because the TEFF calendar is 12 months long, and there's overlapping in competitions between the financial years. So there's not a start point and an end point where you can say this is the money that's come in and gone, this is the money that's gone out. But there's no problem with publishing.
I'm getting a bit confused here, Ben.
It's easily done, Paul.
This is going to be good.
I'm waiting.
Oh, sorry, I thought it had froze again. I'm old school, right? If you can afford it, you can have it. And if you cannot afford it, you can't have it. So can we really afford World and European?
You mean TEFF?
Can TEFF afford World and European teams?
No, not without the
answer says no.
Not without the angler contribution, no.
Yeah, but it's like Terry said, they've raised 5 and they need 15. So All I'm saying is, if you can't afford it, you cannot have it. And you've getting $5,000 there, Terry, which is great. But what if you're not the team next year? Will somebody else take over and generate that $5,000?
That's a good point. So before you answer that, Terry, because obviously we know what the answer is going to be, you wouldn't put that time in. But one of the things I want to do with TEFF is look at somebody as a fundraising coordinator. Now, I'm not saying that person would go out and raise funds for all the teams, because that would just be, as a volunteer, that would be unrealistic. But what I would like to see from the role is to come up with a almost a package of ideas, and share them with the managers and share them with the teams, and help the teams go out there and raise funds. All the things that the ideas that you've implemented, Terry, to raise funds. Do the other teams know about it? Do the other anglers know about it? Could they do the same thing? So to have somebody to
yeah, but we've had that in the past, Ben.
Sorry?
And where it all falls down. We've had this in the past, but where it all falls down, I'll put this to you, Terry. You've done a lot of work to generate that $5,000 for the 6-man team, right? What if you found out that one of them 6 men was taking the cut, like the rest of them, but he had getting sponsorship and never handed it in to you? And he kept it for himself.
Yeah, you can't really go down that route, Paul. That's,
What?
We've kind of been clear
We've had
on
that
this.
loads. We've had it loads.
I think it just depends on how the the one thing that EPP has done is generated a really good team ethic. I know what you're saying, Paul, and by the sounds of it, you've got experience of that happening. But for the guys that are in our team, I can't see it happening. But I know what your reason, and I don't know what the answer would be. That would be down to whoever the manager is at the time for me.
Yeah, it may be a good team this year. It may be a good team next year. What I'm saying is it's left open for, say, 5 years down the line for somebody to do that. And then that just blows the whole situation up, because people start saying, well, I'm not going to fundraise, which is basically what we've got now to an extent. So the good work that Terry's doing could be blown apart in 5 years, not by Terry, not by the lads, the good lads, but it could be one bad apple that comes in and does it.
You can't really prevent that, Paul. There's nothing you can really do to stop that, though, can you?
No.
It's the only way you prevent it is by telling people what will happen if they actually do it, and they'd just be out of the team for me. Take the money and go. It's
not just the financial side either. It's you. I think you mentioned it earlier, Paul, about sharing information.
Yeah.
It's that whole team ethic. We're in this together. We all contribute. We all take and put in the same amount, whether it's down to the tactics or it's down to the finances, it's down to the effort that people put in, and that's what we are seeing in the World Team. And I can't guarantee that's going to be in the future. And if I was in that position in the future and that wasn't the case, I would sack it off. There's no way I'd do it.
The daft thing is, if the EPP hadn't have come in, I think the EPP grew that team bond and what have you, and it give a set of ethics. If the EPP hadn't have come in, we would have still had it now where people were fishing for themselves. But
and you think about
EPP needs to work, because I noticed it in that first year, Terry. The difference the way people were taunting each other, the way they were helping each other, was fantastic. That's the way fishing used to be, and that's what we need to get it back to. And that's why the EPP, it's got to carry on.
Paul, it's here to stay. If we've got some of our top anglers that aren't in it, which is a shame. We'd love to have them back in it. For whatever reason they're not.
Division 2 and 3.
I'm sick of we're even Division 2. I haven't got anyone in Division 1, man. But
Division 3. Christ almighty.
The point I'm making is that, so like I say, some of our top anglers aren't in. If some of the current anglers, if they decide they don't want to be in it either, then we will look at a way of maybe opening up a little bit and reviewing the criteria. And there'll always be there's always be people out there that actually do want to fish it. I've seen a lot on social media over the last 18 months or so about, people wanting to get in and wanting to fish FIPS rules matches. Now, they obviously wouldn't be as experienced as what the current crop are, but if that's, that would be their route in, then so be it. They would get the fish in it and it would continue.
So, Ben, just to finish off the sort of chat on EPP before we move on, as it currently stands, are you in a position to say we're still looking to have it over as many weekends as possible? Based on what I'm hearing from guys that have fished it, now I'm not naming any names here, it's not the EPP, not the cost of EPP that's putting people off over the 3 weekends, it's the cost of the trip that follows that. So, say, for example, the $3,000 per person that it would cost to go to Finland, that's putting people off, not the money for EPP. Mm-hmm. EPP is actually a cheaper way of getting into the team now than what it was previously when you had to accrue points over the various different disciplines. If in the past, if I wanted to be your top points scorer, you had to fish bank, river, lock style. You had to do all the qualifiers, all the nationals. If you qualified, you fished the national following year. So before you knew where you were, your calendar was full of competitions that were fished at IFFA rules that we've already discussed isn't good for the FIPS competition. So the question, like I say, was where we stand at the minute with EPP and how many weekends it's going to be. Because it can be spread out as well. Last year we had it over 3 months, which was good in one way because it kind of felt like you were on tour with the lads, and I think that's helped the bonding. But if you're thinking about spreading the cost for travelling and things like that, then if we can get back fishing, say September, October, we've already got next year's team picked now. Let's use the situation to our advantage a bit with the extra time we've got.
Well, that's exactly right. Yeah. The one thing that's come out of it is obviously we're in a difficult position at the minute with EPP, but we've almost bought one extra year to sort it out. Yeah. So we've got the opportunity. Do we still run something for the sake of running something to give people opportunity to compete, or do we use the time to plan and coordinate, for next year? For
me, I would use the time and spread the events out over every quarter of the year, for example.
It depends on the schedule, the World and European schedule as well. You've got to factor that in.
We know that we know what that is for the next 4 years, so we can pick.
Yes, we do now, but obviously TAS was November. So, in the Worlds are the Worlds not normally September?
No, it's usually July, August time.
Right, and then the Euros is usually May, June. So yeah. I mean, like I said, the added complication as well is venues. I mean, you guys will know more than me how important it is to get the right venues at the right time. And obviously, one of the things we wanted to do was try as best we can to mirror the venues that will be used in World and Europeans for EPP. So whether it's a grilling match, you're picking a grilling river at the right time, or trouty, or what. So that has an effect on when we run EPP. So it's not just a case of plucking dates from thin air and or saying we're going to put one in every quarter, because there's a lot more thinking got to go into it. The right venues, the right time, the right species, and obviously being able to get access as well.
So, I understand all of that. I think it would just help people to justify spreading the costs over as much as possible.
I guess there's compromise. They'll be going to compromise somewhere. I mean, it doesn't matter what you do, you're going to get criticised. You've put the event on at the wrong river at the wrong time, or should have been on last month, or or do you just put the date in the diary and go with it? So, to be honest, that's one thing I think where we could improve and learn is actually speaking to you guys. and getting, you guys know a lot of the venues.
Yeah.
And listen to your thoughts and your proposals on where you think we should do it and when.
Yeah.
That's something.
Not on the Ebu, because Stocky River, so fuck that.
That's something I'll say, Ben. I thought you did very well last year in terms of listening to the anglers. So I fished the Lochstyle National, which obviously I saw you at. And before that Lochstyle National, you actually put something out from the Angling Trust and Team England to say, look, these are our thoughts. You as anglers who are going to fish it, what's your thoughts? And we'll tailor the tweak the national final to kind of meet what the anglers are thinking. So that's definitely something that's improved. So I hadn't seen that with Team England, and I've been involved kind of 10 or 12 years. I hadn't seen that before in terms of kind of an open forum where people can input into it.
Yeah.
I think I'm lucky, and probably Scott's lucky, and some of the other guys are lucky, where we do get to see a lot of the managers and the selection team and the exec team on a regular basis, so we can have conversations, but not everyone can. So yeah, that's definitely something that I think you're definitely improving on, and I keep it going.
I think, yeah, I mean, definitely plans to do that more often. We think we know what people want, or people within TEFF think they know what they want. But actually, you need to speak to the anglers. And the danger is, obviously, you speak to 10 different people, you probably get 10 different answers. So you're going to get some criticism, and we got criticism for the Lochstyle National from certain quarters, but then you had a fair portion that were in favour of it. So that feedback on what anglers want is important, and like I said, it's the same across all of the disciplines, whether it's bank, lake, EPP, or the rivers. So something we'll be certainly trying to do more of in future.
Good. Ben, I'm conscious of the time. I just want to move on to sort of the last thing I've got sort of here down to discuss, which is fundraising and sponsorship. Before we get on there, could you just sort of clarify the relationship between Angling Trust and TEFF? Or is it AT-TEFF? Is that one organisation body, or are they separate?
So TEFF joined the Angling Trust, merged with the Angling Trust a number of years ago. So at the time, they were an independent organisation with their own constitution and committee. When they merged with Angling Trust, there was no longer a need for a constitution. So Angling Trust, we have a national competitions group, national competitions committee, one for each discipline, game, course, and sea, and Angling Trust delegate authority to TEFF to handle fly fishing, competitive fly fishing.
Right, okay.
It's senior level. So there's a terms of reference that the committee work to, which is approved by the Angling Trust, and the volunteers within TEFF basically run, fly fishing for senior level in England.
Right, okay. So you mentioned senior level there. What about the youth level? Is that Angling Trust?
Yeah, so the youth and the ladies are also under the Angling Trust banner. The youth's a very different situation to what it used to be. There was a phenomenally strong, productive group of volunteers within England Youth Fly, EYFA, who did a tremendous job over a number of years. When they resigned, if you like, or left the post, I think it was something like 14, 15, 16 volunteers that were involved.
Yeah.
So on the back of that, it was basically a massive change in the structure there. So where we are now, Craig Barr manages the team. Craig has his some coaches that support him. We've got a lot more parent involvement as well. So we've got little parent groups doing bits and pieces, working groups, that sort of thing. Andy Taylor supports Craig from a logistical point of view, but there's not a committee in the way TEFF has. On the ladies' side, again, they're also part of England Youth, and they have their own organisation committee as well. That's managed by Chris Bobby, and Leanne Frost's heavily involved there, and they basically run and deliver fly fishing for females.
Okay, so regarding sort of fundraising and sponsorship, etc., how does that work with Angling Trust and TEFF, did the Angling Trust provide a grant to TEFF to help run matches, or is the money completely separate?
No, there's no. We don't invest cash resources in any of our teams at the moment. We Angling Trust pay for registration fees for SIPs and travel insurance for all the teams as well. But there's no financial investment into TEFF. Like I said, I think I mentioned earlier on in the piece, all the money TEFF has to invest in teams, i.e. contributions, comes from entry fees from events, a little bit of sponsorship here and there, and fundraise from various bits and pieces. But the vast majority of it comes from entry fees from national competitions.
Okay,
that money, that money that comes in, every single penny is ring fenced for ATTEF. So it might come into Angling Trust, but Angling Trust don't take a single penny from that. 100% of what comes in goes directly to TEFF.
Okay. So regarding sort of Angling Trust activities with fundraising, sponsorship, whatever, what are the Angling Trust doing to sort of representing your country more affordable?
Yeah, I mean, sponsorship is very, very difficult. It's something I've worked on for a number of years now and had moderate success, mostly on the coarse fishing side. I mean, Grays have invested in England youth for the last 5 years, providing the team with clothing, full range of clothing. They're incredibly generous with the product that they've supplied the team. They look fantastic when they're out there, and they look great and feel proud to represent England wearing all this kit, which is great. But actually, it's cash investment that makes a difference. And like I say, it's very difficult within the trade. There's not a massive amount of money within the trade to be investing in sponsorship of England teams. We've pretty much exhausted those avenues now. What we need to do is look outside the trade. So angling is a massive sport in terms of the numbers, so it should be attractive to large companies. We've got a big market in which we can sell. So that's something that we are working on. And like I say, we need to make it attractive enough to have these companies invest.
So the next sort of thing off the bat of that would be probably for you and Terry, really, because what's the sort of answers you get off people not involved? I don't know how many times you've asked this question. What's the answers you'd get off a person to say, would you invest in the fly fishing team from a non-fly fishing based company? What would they say is their answer? Oh, I don't want to sponsor because of X.
Yeah, I haven't heard. I'll start this one, Scott. I haven't heard anyone actually say I don't want to sponsor you because of X. It's a couple of companies I've spoke to have said, well, what can you give us back in return? Which is something I was going to ask Ben's, kind of get Ben's opinion on that. In terms of,
they need a return for their investment, and they don't get a return from sponsoring the England fly fishing team. What we should be able, or what we were looking to provide them with, is actually it's the bigger picture. So you're sponsoring a team, but us as the Angling Trust are putting your product in front of X million anglers. That's the selling point, not the England fly fishing team walking around in a branded vest or a press release with the England name on. That's within the trade that might be attractive, but to a company outside of angling, it's of no interest to them really. They just want to know how many people you can put their product in front of, or what the return on their investment is going to be.
So is that something you're looking to do then, Ben, in terms, are you looking for one major sponsor that's going to get involved with the Angling Trust brand across the piece? So you'd have the course guys wearing a shirt with McDonald's on it, the same as what the fly guys are and everyone else.
Yeah, I mean, again, there's a few different ways you can do it. We've got a few different models as well. There's potential to have sort of club team England that's been raised, where you've got, instead of having one company, you may have a series of companies investing smaller amounts. Whether you get the whole amount from one company or whether you get the amount from 10 companies, it's irrelevant. So I think that's what the French do. They have Club France or whatever it is, and like I said, they've got the various different companies sponsoring them. I mean, rough estimate, Terry, to fully sponsor all of our England teams or to cover the cost, you're looking at about 450 grand a year.
Yeah.
So, finding one company to invest that sort of money is obviously a challenge.
Yeah, sure.
When you said rough estimate there, I thought you were going to ask rough estimate how much McDonald's do you eat a year?
About 430 grand worth.
I think I make another 20 grand, like, so we're in between.
But one of the things with angling is like, it's a big sport. High participation numbers, if you like, and lots of different customers that would appeal to a lot of different companies. Obviously, it's how many anglers we've got vans. You go to a course fishing match on a weekend, pretty much every angler in there has got a van. A lot of the fly fishers would be the same. I know all had a van. So is there a vehicle company out there that would be interested? The potential sales for them there. So there are lots of companies like that we can approach, but what we have to do is obviously dress it up and make sure that they get a return for their investment.
Cool. So just to clarify, fundraising is the responsibility of the TEFF in this situation. Overall sponsorship would be the responsibility of Angling Trust.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So just finishing off, Ben. I know it's a situation we're in's horrible with the COVID virus. For anyone out there that's sort of thinking about not renewing their Angling Trust membership, what are the advantages at the moment? Why should you tell me why should I renew my Angling Trust membership this year?
Have you seen the press release that the Angling Trust sent out last week with the
Get Back Fishing campaign?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Angling Trust's obviously trying to get angling back on the agenda with government. Without members, there wouldn't be an Angling Trust. So without the Angling Trust, there'll be nobody fighting for fishing. There'll be nobody out there fighting this battle to get angling back in. So there's one example straight away. I can understand why comps anglers would look and say, well, there's no competitions on, so what's the point in joining?
Yeah.
But we're still, Angling Trust is still functioning. It's still business as usual for us. We're still out there working for our members. And like I said, that paper that went to the government last week's a perfect example. I was speaking to Clive this morning, and apparently we're one of the only sports that's been pushing this. And other sports are looking at this, looking at what we've done and looking to follow suit, looking at our model of how we can get, let's say, our sport back on the go, if you like, and sort of leading the way in that respect. But quite a good bit of work that they've done there. So like I said, that's, for me, straight away, that's a reason to do it. And on a personal level,
surely it should be a medical reason we'll get fishing back, not because somebody's putting pressure on somebody.
Have you read the report, Paul?
No, I'm just stating fact.
Have you read it though?
No.
I think
if you'd read it, you wouldn't have asked that question, because within the report, it's obviously following government guidelines and following government advice.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
It will only be back when
guidelines and they'll lift it.
I think whatever decision, with the greatest of respect, I see what you guys are saying, but the government have said all along whatever decision they make is going to be based on scientific evidence, so we just got to keep your fingers crossed on that one.
Exactly.
Then just to finish, I don't know if you can answer this or not. I saw a question last night, and we were talking about Environment Agency rod licenses and people not renewing theirs. Do Angling Trust get any money from the Environment Agency off licenses?
Yeah, the Environment Agency invest in the Angling Trust to grow participation, with the ultimate aim of increasing rod license sales.
Right, okay. And that feeds back into the youth level, or?
Participation, just general participation.
Yeah, okay. Cool. All right. Well, that's just about me drawing up with questions, guys. I'm going to open the floor now. Terry?
Yeah, just one question for you, Ben. We talked a lot about sponsorship. If someone is interested, some company is interested in sponsoring the teams or the Angling Trust in general, who do they speak to? Who do they contact?
If the lead comes from competitions, then the first instance would come to speak to me. I would speak with our marketing team, one of our media team, and then we'll start negotiating and start discussions and see where it would lead to. Or contact Richard Morley direct, who's our media manager.
Okay.
Terry, have you still got that GoFundMe page set up? For the
Yeah.
What's the address? You just.
I'll send you it so you can stick it in the link on this video.
Cool. Yeah, do that. I forgot about it. You've just reminded me on. Here we go. Paul?
No comment.
Ben, have you got anything you want to ask us anglers?
Oh, we put us on the spot there.
Now's your chance.
Time
up. Sorry.
Well, one thing I would say is that the door is always open, and that if people have got ideas and people want to make suggestions or come up with ideas and things like that, you can get in touch and speak. More than happy to do so. You see on social media, there's lots of whinging, bitching, moaning. If there's a problem, bring it forward, but also bring a solution. Don't just come forward with the problem. If you've got an idea about how you can fix it, then we're halfway there.
I think Terry's idea of being sponsored by McDonald's is just a fantastic idea.
Should I have a word, Scott?
Oh yeah, I'm game for that, mine. I'll happily put a big on the back of my cap if they want. All right, but you must have something to ask.
Who?
You must have something to ask. Yeah.
I just upset people.
Go on.
No.
Okay. Now's your chance. Don't
want to say now. Keep my thoughts to myself.
I'll get a phone call in 5 minutes and say.
Yeah, you probably will.
Right, guys. I think we'll wind it up there. We're approaching an hour and 20 now, so time does fly. I'd just like to thank you guys for pitching in again. It's been great hearing from you all, Paul, Terry, and Ben. Thanks for your input. Thanks for you guys for listening as well. Just to finish off, we're going to run a competition for next week's pod. So I'll put details on that on the Last Cast podcast Facebook page. Paul is in the middle of creating a carbon fibre empire. So he's got some fantastic fly tying accessories. So we've got a bobbin holder and a hair stacker up for grabs. So look at the Facebook page for details on that. Thanks again, guys. Thanks for listening. Please give us your feedback, and we'll see you again soon.
Cheers, Scott.
Cheers, Scott.